In an unexpected turn of events, the Assad regime has crumbled after over 5 decades of iron-fisted rule. Bashar al-Assad, a man who rose to power almost by accident, has fled Syria following a lightning rebellion led by opposition forces. This is the story of a regime born of repression, propped up by powerful allies, and ultimately undone by war, betrayal, and defiance. Bashar al-Assad was never meant to rule. Born in Damascus on September 11, 1965, he was the third child of al-Assad, the indomitable Lion of Damascus. The elder Assad envisioned his eldest son, Bashar, as his successor. But fate intervened in 1994 when Bashar tragically died in a car accident. Bashar, then studying ophthalmology in London, was hastily summoned back to Syria to prepare for a very different destiny. After a crash course at the military academy in Homs, he was groomed for leadership. In 2000, following al-Assad's death, the Syrian parliament lowered the minimum age for presidential candidates, clearing the way for Bashar to assume power at just 34. Initially, Bashar al-Assad's leadership sparked cautious optimism. His European education and youthful image inspired hope for reform. Asma al-Assad, his glamorous wife, added to the allure of a modern presidency. Early moves like releasing political prisoners and easing media restrictions reinforced this promise of change. But the honeymoon was short-lived. Feeling insecure and illegitimate, Assad dismantled his father's old guard and surrounded himself with loyalists. By 2001, the so-called Damascus Spring was brutally crushed, with intellectuals jailed and dissent silenced. The mask of reform slipped, revealing the true face of a regime built on fear and oppression. The Assad regime tightened its grip on power, leveraging economic growth and exporting gas and hydrocarbons while silencing opposition voices. By the time the Arab Spring reached Syria in 2011, the regime was ready to respond with unparalleled brutality. The uprising began in Daraa, where the regime tortured and killed children who had scrawled anti-Assad graffiti. Protests spread, but instead of reform, Assad sent tanks into the streets and violently crushed dissent. The country spiraled into civil war, and Assad framed his repression as a battle against terrorism. Syria descended into a humanitarian catastrophe. Millions fled the country and hundreds of thousands perished. Accusations of war crimes, including the use of chemical weapons, mounted against the regime. Yet, Assad clung to power, protected by his allies. Russia and Iran became the regime's lifelines. Russian airstrikes devastated rebel strongholds, while Iran and Hezbollah provided boots on the ground. Despite international condemnation, Assad remained in power, turning Syria into a battlefield for global powers. But even the most entrenched regimes can fall. In late 2024, as Russia shifted focus to Ukraine and Iran grappled with its own crises, Syrian rebels seized the moment. A coalition led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and the Free Syrian Army launched a swift counter-offensive. Within just 12 days, they reclaimed key cities including Aleppo, Hama, and Homs. By December 7th, the rebels encircled Damascus. Lacking support from his military and allies, Bashar al-Assad fled Syria, bringing an end to 53 years of Assad family rule. The dynasty that once ruled with an iron fist collapsed as swiftly as it had risen. The fall of Bashar al-Assad marks a turning point for Syria, but the scars of war run deep. A new chapter begins, but the road to recovery will be long and uncertain. Will the country find peace and rebuild, or will new struggles emerge from the ashes of dictatorship? The Syrian people have endured unimaginable suffering, but their resilience offers hope for a brighter future.